Welcome back into the Dead Arm Sports Podcast. Josh and Jell coming at you live on a Friday. We are recording on Wednesday. Espiernes indeed, Jell. Have a jam-packed episode for you today. Going to cover quite a bit. Have a lot going on over the weekend in sports, college football, NFL, and the return of the PGA Tour season. Looking forward to that. We'll get our pick'em going back. That's going to start off with our question of the day today. Kind of have a double hitter for you guys out there.
Double hitter quitter.
I want to know who takes the 7 seed in the AFC and NFC. And then you have a couple teams that you want to power rank as well, Jell. So why don't you kick it off with the power ranking, and then we'll get into who we think is going to essentially clinch those 7 seeds.
All right. So as we're looking at these 7 seeds, you got to look at all the records, of course. And we have 8 teams that are currently 500 at 8-8. Now, 2 years ago, a 500 record, you're like kind of satisfied with it. But, some of these teams are going to end up below 500. Some of them are going to end up above 500. And those teams that end up below 500, it feels like a down year. But let me rack off these 8 teams that, and I'm going to start off with the AFC, 8 teams that are 8-8. New England, Miami, Pittsburgh, Jacksonville. You've got 4 teams in the NFC at 8-8. Seattle, Detroit, Green Bay, Tampa. If you had to rank those 8 teams right now, 1 through 8, how would you want to do it? Start with 1, start with 8, however you want to do it. I kick it over to you, Mr. Josh Peck.
Sounds good. I like going 8-1, leaving some suspense for who that number 1 slot is. So I'm going to kick it off right now. I got to go with Miami at 8. They just lost to New England, so I can't really put New England behind Miami. And Miami's going to be playing with their 3rd-string quarterback this weekend, essentially. So I don't like their chances. They're going up against the Jets, which the Jets have been awful these last couple of weeks as well. But Miami just is not clicking right now on offense, and I think they're the worst of these 8 teams right now. Number 7 coming in at a close spot in front of Miami is the team that just beat them, New England. Their offense is just putrid. It is not fun to watch. I don't think they're a good football team. Let me remind you, in midseason, they got absolutely destroyed by a 3-win Chicago Bears team on Monday Night Football, and New England just has not looked good. So I have them at 7-6. I've got Pitt. So essentially I've got the 3 teams fighting for that 7th seed. And I've got Pitt right now. And I think Pitt right now, granted, going into this weekend, they need New England to lose. They need Miami to lose. And I actually really like the situation that Pittsburgh's in right now. They're facing a Cleveland team that doesn't really have anything to play for at all. Miami's, again, going up against the Jets. New England's got a road matchup against the Bills, which the Bills are fighting for. Essentially, they could get that 1st seed in the playoffs. So you don't know what at this time of recording on Wednesday, how that's all shaking out. Don't want to get into that too much again, but essentially the Bills do have something to play for right now. So I like Pitt's chances, and that's why I've got them as the 6th seed. Number 5, I got to go with Seattle. Seattle is such a good story this year, but they have been slipping the last couple of weeks. They just don't look like the team that they were a couple of weeks ago. Tyler Lockett's been banged up, which he was a huge impact player on their offense for them this year, helping out Geno. Geno has kind of come down to earth a little bit too. So right now I've got them rolling at 5. Number 4, I've got Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay has lucked into the playoffs based on how shitty their division is this year. They had to come from
bad.
It's been so bad.
Okay. So 3 Saints quarterbacks, 3 Carolina quarterbacks, 3 Saints quarterbacks, and who's the last one? Jesus, in that division.
Atlanta.
2 quarterbacks, which a backup and then a rookie. I mean, Marcus Mariota is not a starter. So Like, that's how bad that division is. 8 quarterbacks, not including the Bucks.
Yep. But
over 3 teams.
Beat the Panthers this last weekend. Tom Brady had a great day. Their defense is still pretty solid, so I'll put them at the 4 spot. Number 3, I've got Detroit. Detroit's defense is still a little skeptical. Their offense is putting up points. Jared Goff has been awesome. Not as much on the road, though. He's definitely been playing a lot better at home, but I kind of like where Detroit's at right now. Tough test this weekend at Green Bay, but I like them right now at number 3. Number 2, I've got Jacksonville. Jacksonville, I think, is going to just destroy Tennessee this weekend. Tennessee, Josh Dobbs starting their 3rd-string quarterback essentially on the road in Jacksonville.
On that squad with 8 days on that Tennessee squad. And he actually looked, he looked better than Malik. He looked better at times than freaking Tannehill. I mean, he's got a better arm than Tannehill, at least at this point. Which is sad to say, but I'm not saying Josh Dobbs has any future with the Titans, but yikes.
Yep. Trevor Lawrence has looked good. Travis Etienne has looked good. Jacksonville's defense has been pretty solid. So I've got them at a solid 2 spot right now. And then number 1, that leaves Green Bay. Green Bay coming off of that dominant performance against Minnesota. They've been on a roll. Yes, they've had luck fall their way, whether it be in games with teams that they needed to lose in front of them to keep their playoff hopes alive. Losing, that's happened. But Green Bay just kind of looks like they're clicking right now. And that's without Aaron Rodgers really doing a whole lot. And if he starts doing a lot, if his receivers start getting on the same page, could make a little bit of noise in the playoffs, as much as I hate to say that being a Bears fan, but right now they're number 1 out of these 8 teams for me.
Okay. Tell me I'm wrong. Do you enjoy being a miserable Bears fan? I feel like you have, like, as you, like, not you, but there's got to be something about, like, God, I hate my team, and, like, I always can feel sorry for myself because I'm a freaking Bears fan. Like you've got that as an out every single Monday when you show up to work and you're in a shitty mood. You can, at least you've got an out. Is there any piece of you there? Yeah. Any piece of that in you?
Gives me a little bit of hope going into next year with us having a top draft pick. And it seems like they've made right moves so far, outside of, don't get me started with the Chase Claypool trade. But outside of that, it seems like they're kind of heading in the right direction. And this division, I think, is going to be up for grabs here in the next little bit. So it's anyone's game. And yeah, but all right.
What's nuts is that the Packers, apparently the Packers and Bears were in a bidding war for Claypool. So I guess Green Bay was, I mean, they were going after him, and the Bears had to give up their 2nd rounder for him. And oh, yikes.
Yep.
My 1 through 8. Well, we've got the same top 4 in order. Tampa 4, Lions 3, Jacksonville 2, Green Bay 1. Same reasons. I'm not going to double down on that. Our back 4, however, are all shifted a little bit. Our back 4 are shifted a little bit. I've got Seattle actually at 8. They started off so damn hot, but outside of last week, last week they took care of the Jets. They won 23-6, but again, that's against Mike White. White had been out the previous couple weeks. Mike White, he looked really nice.
He came back down to earth fast.
He came back down to what we kind of expected out of Mike White. The previous weeks, they lost to the Chiefs. They lost to the Niners. They lost to the Panthers. They beat the Rams only by 4, and that was before Baker got there. They lost to the Raiders. They lost to the Buccaneers. So they're on a little bit of a tailspin. They obviously have a healthy Kenneth Walker now at this point, which that's a massive boost, but I can't trust Geno. So I've got them at the 8th spot here. I put Miami at 7. I could probably flip-flop those 2. I just trust the skill position players of Miami a little bit more right now with Miami there. And I think if Teddy is able to play, Actually, no, it sounds like Teddy's not going to play. So it's Skylar Thompson. All right. Well, we can flip flop those two, like I said. Number 6, I got to throw New England in there just because they came off that win against Miami. Although I think that, God, I hated the fact that they're 500. And then number 5, I've got Pittsburgh. It seems like Kenny Pickett's figured it out a little bit. I really think Tomlin or whoever made this call, whether it was Tomlin or ownership or the GM, because they had given Mitch Trubisky a contract, and I'm sure it seems a lot like the Bears situation when the Bears gave Andy Dalton a contract and promised him he was going to start the year. I feel like the Steelers maybe did that same thing with Trubisky, and they promised him like, hey, we're going to get you 3-4 starts at least. And both of them flopped. And then they both moved on to their future franchise quarterbacks. Pickett's made some really nice strides. So I actually really like Pittsburgh, and I think they've got a pretty good shot this week to potentially get a win. So, yeah, and then we got the same 1 through 4.
I'll let you kick it off then, Joe. Who do you have locking down the 7 seeds on the NFC and AFC sides?
I think I like Pittsburgh. We've never seen, it's as long of a shot as it's been. We've never seen Tomlin with a below 500 record. I can't believe I have to say, I think he's going to keep that streak alive. They're facing the Browns. The Browns have nothing to play for. And the Ravens are facing the Bengals. I mean, not that that's the battle here, but they got the win against the Ravens last week. If I'm Lamar, I'm sitting out this week too for the against the Bengals. But I mean, Jets, Dolphins, that's a toss up in this Patriots game. The Pats are facing the Bills. Bills are going to be coming off this, the DeMar Hamlin piece. I think they're going to play inspired. I think you could see the Jets and Patriots, or the Jets and Bills win. Dolphins, Patriots both go down. Pittsburgh has everything to play for. Browns have nothing to play for. They end up with a 9-8 record and making it in. It's as crazy as it sounds, just from a couple weeks ago, where the Steelers looked like they were dead as disco. I think they have. That's my pick. That's my pick right now.
Yeah, no, I'm on the Pittsburgh side. I think New England's going to fall to Buffalo, and I think the Jets don't have anything to play for, but I think that they're going to end up coming out and beating Miami, and Jets defense will be the reason there. And Pittsburgh will come out and beat Cleveland and essentially clinch that playoff spot. And then NFC side for me, it's Green Bay. I don't see any other scenario there. I don't see Detroit coming in on Sunday Night Football at Lambeau last week of the season, coming out and pulling off the win at all. And Detroit might not even have anything to play for, because if Seattle comes and wins earlier on at their 3:00 matchup, that game doesn't even matter as far as Detroit getting into the playoffs. So they might not even have anything to play for at that point, but other than to stop Green Bay. So I like Green Bay.
Green Bay weather on Sunday, below freezing. Jared Goff in a night game, below freezing, in a clutch situation. All Green Bay has to do is win. Again, another crazy scenario. You think a few weeks ago for both the Steelers and the Packers, of course, it's the two, just stalwarts within NFL history that end up making the playoffs and making a run into that 7th seed.
We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram. Check us out on Facebook at Dead Arm Sports. Go to YouTube, Dead Arm Sports, into that search bar, subscribe, click the bell. That way you know when our live episodes drop. We monitor that chat. You can ask us any questions there. If you miss out, Gel can be found at DasGel on socials. That's at DASJEL. I can be found at DasJPEC. That's at DASJPEC. Send us in any questions there. Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot, and you will get some sticker swag sent your way for free. National championship preview. Can't believe it, but we are finally to that point in the season. Absolutely crazy. It seems like just yesterday we were picking our division or conference winners and Heisman and all of that, but it is down to the
Heisman
final.
picks did not go so well.
Not so well. Down to the final game of the season at Texas Christian University at Georgia in SoFi
University
Stadium.
of Georgia.
SoFi
full
Stadium.
Names if you're going to go full names.
University of Georgia. Game happening at SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles. Saw a tweet today that SoFi is not allowing tailgating in their parking lot for the national championship. Don't know if that's true or not, but if it is, that's stupid.
Go home. No,
they're probably
now.
thinking that people are going to buy more beer than inside the stadium if that's the case. But Georgia coming in as a heavy favorite in this one. Last I saw when I looked earlier today, again, we're recording on Wednesday, Georgia 12.5-point favorites, over under in this one at 62.5. Let's just start right there, Gel. Do you think you're the responsible betting guru on the show for entertaining purposes only. What do you think of these numbers?
I mean, this Georgia line opened up at 13.5. It's already been bet down to 12.5. I think I just starting off with that line, I think I'm gonna go Georgia. I started off this week thinking I want to go TCU, but the way that I look at TCU's defense, they play a 3-3-5 defensive formation. So that's 3 down linemen, 3 linebackers, 5 defensive backs. And that works great in the Big 12. But so effectively their defense is, let's create a big shell with, 2 corners on the outside, 2 corners kind of, in the slot position, 1 deep safety, or maybe, or switch it up. Maybe you got 2 deep safeties, you've got 1 corner, you shift accordingly to the formation. Where I think that is going to bite them though in the butt is Brock Bowers. I think he is just such a Swiss Army knife at tight end for them, for Georgia, that, he can line up out wide. He can line up in the slot. He can line up as a down tight end. He can block. I think that he's going to be this game's MVP in terms of just, maybe the numbers might not be there, but what he's going to be able to do in terms of forcing that TCU defense to shift, adjust every single play. You have to focus on Brock Bowers. If you're that TCU defense playing a shell cover defense, that doesn't really work against Georgia because they're not necessarily dependent on that deep ball like a lot of the Big 12 defenses, or like a lot of Big 12 offenses are. Georgia's really good with their running backs, their tight ends, a lot of underneath stuff, and just scheming their way into the open field where, and with Brock Bowers being able to line up anywhere he wants on the field and being dominant at any spot on the field, I think that that's going to be the difference maker here. And I think Georgia does end up winning this game by 2 touchdowns.
Yeah, that was one of the keys I wanted to talk to you about and get your take on Brock Bowers. So he's coming off of a 4 for 64 performance. So I would say Ohio State did a very good job of limiting him in that offense. It kept him out of the end zone. And to think
that that's limiting a tight end, that's crazy. That's how good this guy is.
Yep. But I don't know. Georgia's offense resembles a little bit kind of Michigan style, where they don't have huge, big name wide receivers this year. And granted, Blake Corum wasn't playing, but TCU was able to limit Donovan Edwards a little bit. Outside of that, I mean, he busted that huge run in the first drive of the game, and you thought, okay, here we go. It doesn't matter who's back there for Michigan. But if TCU can play tough on defense like they did against Michigan and limit Kenny McIntosh a lot in this one. And if they can get a game plan going to limit Brock Bowers, I think that's one of their huge keys to this one. And if they can do that, I think they're going to be right in this one. But again, that's a tall task to limit Brock Bowers for 2 games in a row.
But I would also kind of back up what you're saying and counter with they were able to stop Michigan's deep throwing game. Michigan, we saw that game against Michigan versus Ohio State, where they just had, it was deep balls for days, open deep balls. TCU didn't let any of that happen. And yes, Michigan still put up a good number of points, but it never felt like that game was really in Michigan's control. But that's kind of like, that's how Michigan beat Ohio State was, they're regular ground and pound game, but then being able to go over the top. Georgia doesn't have to go over the top, and they're still dominant. They're still putting up mad points. So I think that almost turns into a negative for TCU in the fact that if you're playing that shell defense, if Georgia just keeps throwing the ball 6 yards, 8 yards, 10 yards, and lets their elite athletes run, Darnell Washington, Brock Bowers, the two running backs that they've got, and that their 2 wide receivers or their 3 of their wide receivers are also really good. All Stetson Bennett has to do is kind of be that game manager and make the right plays and find the open guys and not have to do anything spectacular. Doesn't really ever need to go really deep downfield. And he won't have to against this defense, because if that's obviously assuming TCU continues to play this 3-3-5 shell defense. So as much as I hate to say it, I really think that we're looking at least a 2 touchdown victory by Georgia. Not that I'm rooting for it. I'm going to be rooting hard Horned Frogs here. Go Perp, but not drinking Perp. Just go the color purple. And I think Georgia wins this. I'm almost thinking possibly 3 touchdowns here. So I don't have a final in front. I don't have a final right off the top of my head, but if I'm betting on this game right now, I think Georgia's got it. And Georgia covers. Now you got the over under at 63 with let's put that 13.5 point, or you had 62.5. So let's say we're working on a 12.5 point spread. Do you see the over under here? With this game, do you see the over or the under?
I think we'll see the over on this one. I think it'll be pretty high scoring. We saw some high scoring, obviously, in the 2 semifinal games, and both of these quarterbacks seem like they're playing fairly well. Stetson Bennett, it took him a little bit to get going, but man, you like the competitiveness from Max Duggan. I mean, he can extend drives with his legs, hitting receivers when he needs to. I don't know, he's been the feel-good story of this season, someone that you knew about going into the season, but just gradually kept getting his name up there and looked better and better. And TCU would find ways to win games. And that was mostly because of Max Duggan, and essentially could have been undefeated to this point in time had they not called some stupid play calls in the Big 12 championship game. But I like Max Duggan in this one, and I think that they'll be able to put up points on this one. So I would definitely go with the over in this one, over that 62.5. That's not a ton. That's 3/4 of the points that we saw in some of the previous ones. As far as one of my other keys to what Georgia defense do you think is going to show up in this one? We saw them get absolutely torched against Ohio State, and I'll die on this hill that if Marvin Harrison Jr. wouldn't have gotten hurt, oh, we're not even talking Georgia right now. We're talking Ohio State. They could not find a way to shut him down. Quentin Johnson's very good as well. I wouldn't say to the level of Marvin Harrison, but he is very good, going to be going more than likely in the first round of the NFL draft this season. Do you see them being able to limit him? And can they get a good pass rush going against Max Duggan in this one? Jalen Carter's been talked about as a top 3 pick. 1 tackle last game.
He got nothing going against Ohio State. There was the one, I swear there was the one time that he got a legitimate pass rush on CJ Stroud, and Stroud literally just sidestepped him. And then that opened up one of Stroud's longer runs in the game and got him a clutch 3rd down run for a first. So, but I think there's no receiver in college football that can match Marvin Harrison. He's the best. He's easily the best receiver in college football. Quentin Johnson's nice, but he's not Marvin Harrison. So, and really Quentin Johnson's biggest strength is being tall, being physical. I think if you're trying to match this TCU team physically, you can do it. So just knowing Kirby, the types of players that he recruits, the type of defense that the type of defense that he teaches and preaches, not trying to rhyme there. That was nice. The type of defense that he plays though is a more physical one, obviously. And that's where Quentin Johnson just can absolutely dominate, is when he's able to be physical and just be bigger and taller and stronger than everybody else. But that's hard to do against these Georgia defenders. I'd imagine Quentin Johnson he could still go for 90 and a touchdown, but the key to that TCU offense still is the running game. And I struggle to see Max Duggan. He's obviously a massive part of that running game. And I just the speed of that Georgia defense, the physicality of that defensive line and those linebackers, I struggle to see Max Duggan getting going. And if he can't get going, then that running game can't get going. And then that just limits what they can do on the outside to your boy Quentin Johnson. So
we don't know the status of Kendre Miller at this point in time, too.
Yeah, and he's one of the better running backs in the country. So if he's questionable, or if he's maybe hobbling out there, that's a huge loss. They better get the deepest needles that are in Texas to shoot up Kendre Miller, because let's go. Only chance they've got. All right, I'm gonna throw out a final score here. I don't know if you've got one, but I'm gonna throw out my final score of 45-27. I think TCU may scoring their first 2 drives maybe, and end up kicking a field goal at the end of the first half. But Georgia's just going to be too much. I see only touchdowns out of Georgia, and I see a few touchdowns. I see 3 touchdowns, 2 field goals out of TCU. 45-27 finish.
All right. You have a lot on the line with this pick, Gel. Our bowl pick'em did conclude, because I guess technically this isn't a bowl game, but we'll count it towards it. But you are 1 win away from the elusive 20. No, it's 26-19.
Oh my God. I was what?
You need 1 pick to get to 20. So
I was like, there's no way. Did Tulane just do that for me?
I am rolling this one. I think it's going to be closer. I think it comes down to a field goal game. I've got a final score of 34-31 in this one, kind of keeping pace with the awesome semifinals that we had. And I am rolling with
the Frogs.
A Hypnotoad. Let's go
the
TCU.
Hypnotoad. I love it.
Yeah, their season just has been unbelievable to this point. They found ways to win games that you didn't think they were going to be able to win. And this is another one, and they've got all the confidence in the world. They just knocked off Michigan, and they've seen that Georgia is beatable. Granted, TCU does not have the offense that Ohio State does, but I think they'll be able to game plan and find a way to at least keep it close and maybe have a couple turnovers bounce their way and maybe get a field goal at the end of the game to win it.
Do you think that there's a chance though? Like, I mean, we've seen this before where like this is more in the NCAA basketball tournaments where like one of these Cinderella stories, they make it to the Sweet 16 and they get there and then they face a Duke, a Kansas, you know, one of the just where it's just all 4 or 5 stars, just juggernauts. And then they get smoked because they went all out for their previous weekend. Do you see that as, I feel like that's a little bit of it's got to be a little bit worrisome for the Frogs.
Yeah. I think I would be more worried about them if they were coming into this undefeated right now. They'd have a ton more pressure on them. But I think that loss in the Big 12 championship actually humbled them a little bit and helped them out where they didn't have that added pressure of being undefeated. So
I like that. Okay.
This could be one that is ugly. I'm hoping it's not. I think if TCU wins, it is going to be in a close last second field goal, come down to that final possession. They're not going to blow out Georgia by any means, but this is one unfortunately I could see it as a Georgia 3 touchdown victory, but I'm hopeful that TCU's ride continues and they play the way that they did against Michigan and keep it close.
I'm rooting TCU. I know that.
All right, so let's move into NFL Week 18 preview here. Not sure where necessarily you want to go. I'll kick it over to you. We did preview a little bit of some of the bigger matchups this weekend. A lot of playoff implications. We got Titans at Jags kicking it off on Saturday night, primetime slot. And winner of this one is in the playoffs with not great record, maybe. I mean, Tennessee is going to be below 500 if they win, and the Jags will be going home. Jags win, they're 1 game above 500. And this is for the AFC South division. And ultimately, I do see Jacksonville winning this one by a lot. I don't think this one's going to be close. I don't think it's going to be a very good game, but got Derrick Henry that's rested up for a week, so that's going to be a huge focal point of that Jags defense to stop him. Do you see this one being close? Do you see Titans having a chance or pulling out the victory in this one? Where do you sit on this one, Joe?
Trevor Lawrence, over the last 5 weeks, has maintained a top, this was before that game against Houston.
Yeah,
but
that was
which they ended up winning 31-3, but he didn't have to do anything for them to win that game. So before that game, when he was being relied on, he ended up having a top 5 QBR over the last 5, I believe it was over the last 5 weeks prior to last week overall. So it's been awesome to just see this massive jump out of Trevor Lawrence the second half of this season. We've seen any shitty habits that he had out of, the minimal coaching that he got at Clemson, the zero amount of coaching that he got from Urban Meyer last season, Doug Peterson stepping in, helping him out a ton. And it's like, this almost feels like his rookie season where he's taking that massive leap in the second half of the year. And it's paid massive dividends where they beat Tennessee back earlier in December. They beat Dallas earlier in December. They just took care of the Jets. It was never even close on that Thursday night game. And then they just wiped the floor with the Texans last week. So Jacksonville on a 4-game win streak, back to 500 from a 4-8 season up to 8-8. I'm absolutely riding with Jacksonville. I don't see enough love for Doug Peterson in terms of Coach of the Year award. I get Brian Daboll. He came into an absolute mess, and he's already got the Giants in the playoffs. So that's awesome. That's badass. But to take this Jags team from a 1-win team, from the first pick in the draft into the playoffs from that absolute just disgrace of a franchise that they were last season, now into the playoffs, assuming they win this game, I think Doug Peterson needs a little bit more love for Coach of the Year. Again, I don't think he's going to win it, but I hope he gets votes because it was obviously we saw it was Raiders level of just complete dysfunction, worse than Raiders level dysfunction last year for the Jets and that franchise. Yeah, I see the Jags winning this game. I don't see how Tennessee can compete just with Dobbs. There's just a little bit of fear with this pick, though, because Derrick freaking Henry could go for like 220 and 3 scores and win this game by himself for the Titans. So I'm not saying this is a lock or anything, but because of the Derrick Henry factor, and he's always awesome at the end of seasons. But the Jags should not lose this game. They are the more dominant team. They're at home. Not that they have a giant home field advantage, but they're at home. I like the Jags here.
Yep. No, I do too. I think ultimately, if you're Jacksonville, your whole defensive game plan this week in practice is stopping Derrick Henry. Make Dobbs beat you. If that's the case, you're going to win the game. He's not going to beat you, and they should be able to lock up the division.
A Dobbs
easy.
To Nick Westbrook-Ikhine. Okay, I'll take my chances.
Right, exactly.
Let me jump over to the NFC East here. Did you have anything else on that?
Nope.
Perfect.
Good to go.
Let me jump over to the NFC East here. I want to talk about both games. Dallas at Washington and the Giants at Philly. It's crazy that we kind of had thought, hey, Philly walking to a division championship. Well, right now, if Philly loses and Dallas wins that division. And therefore, Philly is going to be the 5 seed, have to play week 1 on the road in the playoffs. And Jalen Hurts today, again, we're recording live on Wednesday the 4th, was limited today in practice. I'm sure, and that's probably appropriate given, he's got a throwing shoulder injury, but he's got to play in this matchup against the Giants. But for the Giants, I guess I'm kind of questioning how they're going to play this game. They've got no seeding implications in this game. They're not going to bump up to the number 5 seed. They're locked in at the 6. They're not going to fall down to the 7. What do you see the Giants doing in this game, and how do you see Philly playing this game? Do you think I have to imagine Philly's going to be going all out for this W? Do you think the Giants end up benching, their starters before the game at halftime at any point? Or do you think they just want to ride this momentum, risk injury, and go into the playoffs just with all their guys rolling and any momentum that they have?
I think they want to keep the momentum going a little bit. I think you'll see Daniel Jones out there for probably a half. Saquon's the one that I'm wondering, just with his injury history the last couple of years, he's been good and been a very good focal point for them this year and stayed relatively healthy, that I think he might not get as much of a run. I mean, you don't really need to stay in rhythm as a running back per se. I mean, Saquon, you know what he's going to do when he goes out onto the field, assuming he's healthy. But I do think Daniel Jones, we won't see a full game from him. He goes down, and then, I mean, he had a hell of a game to clinch the playoff berth for them last week against the Colts. A couple scores on the ground. So his mobility has really helped out this Giants offense. And I think they'll try and protect him a little bit in that. And then, like you said, with Philly, they need to win. And so I would imagine if Hurts is able to go, he's going to be going. And if he's limited this early in practice, I mean, we saw him last week throwing a little bit too. I imagine he'll probably go on Sunday, but I guess we'll see once it comes.
And then just sticking in that NFC East, Dallas, Washington. Dallas is obviously going to be trying to win this game. They're playing at the same time, these two games, which way to go, NFL. Thank you for making that happen where you've got the Dallas and Philly playing at the same time.
Yep.
So you don't have, so that if, I mean, the worst would have been if Philly loses or wins in the noon game, then Dallas just knows, hey, we can rest our guys. Way to go, NFL, to get this right, put both games on at the same time. We've got Washington here. Sam Howell making his first start, third round pick. Really, if he would have came out of UNC after his, I believe, junior year, he was being looked at as possibly the number one quarterback off the board, at least at the beginning of the season. Kind of fell off a little bit, but the talent is there. He was really high in a recruit and everything. I'm excited to see him, though, against finally getting his first start. What sucks, though, is that he has to face this Dallas defensive line that is going to be going all out at him.
Yeah. You would have liked to see him a little bit earlier on in the season. And I'm sure Washington, knowing that, I mean, they were in the playoff hunt until they lost last week. So, I mean, you can't fault them for not putting Sam Howell in, but you think hindsight, they were probably hoping that they would get a look at him as well to know kind of what they have at the future, kind of similar to what Atlanta was able to do with Desmond Ridder. You got a good run with him to kind of see, okay, we see some stuff with him. Is he going to be in our future long-term plans? But Washington hasn't been able to do that at all with Sam Howell. You'd mentioned that he would have been for sure a first-round quarterback had he come out 2 years ago, and ended up third round this last season, and had a very disappointing, I would say, senior season at North Carolina. So it'll be interesting to see what he has, again, like you said, throwing him into the fire against that Dallas defense, and they have been a little bit softer the last few weeks, but still, that's a tall task for him to come in week 18. Got to imagine some of the veterans on the team, they don't have anything to play for. It's not like they can spoil Dallas from missing the playoffs. It might just limit them on what seed they get. So not a ton to get motivated for if you're Washington, but I am excited to see what Sam Howell has. I'm always excited to see some of the rookie quarterbacks come into the game and just see what they have, because they're always fun to watch in college, and you want to see how they transition to the NFL.
It's a little disappointing, I think, from this Washington staff that they went back to Carson Wentz last week.
Yeah.
Like, if you're going to move off Heineke, go to Sam Howell. Don't go to Wentz. Wentz has proven that he's completely worthless. And if you have a future quarterback, it's on the roster, it's Sam Howell. Wentz is good as gone. I get that you had to give up a pick for him, but Wentz is, he's going to be off the roster in this offseason. There's no chance that anybody hangs on, that the Washington football team hangs on to him. So I wish they would have gone to Howell this past week instead of Wentz. But final reason I'm extremely interested in this weekend from the NFC East, I made 2 bets back in May that the Eagles were going to win this division. And I thought I had it wrapped up like 3 weeks ago. And then Philly goes and loses the last 2. I've got like $50 to win 91 and change. I need Philly. Let's go, Eagles.
The last one I want to talk about really isn't a ton of other games with huge playoff implications, but the Sunday night football game, we talked about it a little bit in that power rankings, and I've got my 1 versus 3 in my power rankings, Green Bay hosting Detroit. And
by the way, just to be clear, if for some reason you skip till the end, that is 1 and 3 or
of
power
the 8
ranking
and 8 teams
of 8 and 8 teams.
Yes.
Not overall.
Not overall, definitely not. But This one is one Detroit has been absolutely rolling. I mean, they put up 41 points last week. Their offense was firing on all cylinders. Goff was looking good, passing the ball. DeAndre Swift was relevant last week. Jamal Williams has had an unbelievable season. He's, I believe, tied with Barry Sanders, or one touchdown from Barry Sanders' rushing touchdown record for Detroit. So,
Although Barry, I believe, was doing it in 14 games,
or something.
not
Yeah.
17.
I mean, it wasn't 17 for sure. And he was on a very crappy Detroit team too. I mean, I think they made the playoffs once or twice in his tenure there, but Lions have not been in a situation like this in a long time. At least a lot of the guys on the roster haven't been in a situation like this outside of Jared Goff, but a lot of young guys. Detroit's been a really fun team to watch this year, but going into an absolute gauntlet to head to Lambeau Field, a cold Sunday night game in January against a Green Bay team that is coming off of a just absolute dominant performance on special teams, defense, offense this last week against Minnesota. And this will be the last game of the weekend, last game of the regular season of the 2022/23 season. And I think we're going to get a good one. Ultimately, I do think Green Bay comes out victorious in this one, but do you see this being close, or is this going to be another divisional pounding like the Packers took to the Vikings last week?
I don't think it'll be the same pounding, but I don't think it'll be close. I mean, that Vikings Packers game could have been like 41-3 if the Packers really, kept the pedal to the metal against the Vikings last weekend. So I don't think it's going to be that, but I see it still being a 2-score game, and Green Bay walks away with a W. I don't know if it's necessarily because I trust Green Bay, but how much trust can I really put in Dan Campbell, Jared Goff, a really young team, a defense that has been pretty shoddy all season up until they play the Bears. But it's not a good Lions defense. The Packers seem to have found their spot where they're kind of the sweet spot of that offense, where it's more just run dominance. That's when they win, is when it's the AJ squared show of Aaron Jones and AJ Dillon. I see a 2-score game here with the Packers running away with it. Green Bay's won. They're 4-0 in their last 4, and they finish off at home Sunday night. That crowd is going to be just absolutely rocking. And not to be like conspiracy theorist guy, but I think the NFL might be like, in those refs' ears, be like, hey, if there's a Lions defensive pass interference, just, maybe throw that flag, even if it's ticky-tack. Like, I can totally see that. We've seen that before. I don't know. Maybe I'm looking too hard into this, tinfoil hat guy. Tinfoil hat guy over here. But
oh yeah, don't get my dad started with the Green Bay conspiracy.
Oh, I could.
theories.
Oh God, that would be great. God, I can't wait.
He said
I'm totally gonna do that too next time I see him. It's gonna be dirty. Oh my God, get him. God, we get a couple. Oh shit, get a whiskey or a bottle, a couple glasses of wine. Game over.
Any other games you're looking forward to, Joe, before we hit our last regular season Drew locks of the year?
Yeah, I guess last one for me is New England, Buffalo. We're recording this before DeMar Hamlin has any status updates, any firm status updates. But it sounds like they're still going to play this game as of right now, recording at 7:17 p.m. on Wednesday the 4th. It sounds like that game is on, and I'm going to be watching that game with a lot less interest in the football game and a lot more interest in just seeing how this game, seeing how the players play, seeing how the players, if they're playing on an emotional high or if they're playing on an emotional low on the Bills side. Obviously looking forward to, a number of tributes out there. I'd imagine every NFL team will have their pregame tributes out for Damar Hamlin and just wishing the best for him. And even if you do get a positive report, the emotions are going to be running extremely high. Game is in Buffalo as well. So it's going to be a really emotional game. And I'm not, again, like I said, I'm not necessarily going to be wanting to, I don't really give a shit about the football game. I'm going to be looking forward to seeing how everything plays out emotionally with the fans, the players, the coaches, and everything. And again, as of now, as we're recording on Wednesday, Hamlin is still in the ICU. So I can't stress that enough for any of you listeners that we don't have any sort of update. I know this episode's coming out late, is going to come out on a Friday, but as we're recording, no updates. I'm hoping that the Bills come out and are saying, we're doing this for Damar. And I guess that's all I've got to say.
Yeah, no, I think they'll come out and put on a good performance. I mean, they can essentially eliminate New England with the victory. And I think they're going to want to do that. When you have a chance to eliminate a team, you eliminate them. I can't stress that enough. And we've seen that in the past where you don't, and it might come back to bite you a little bit in the postseason. But yeah, no, that's another one I'm looking forward to as well, not from the football aspect, but absolutely just to kind of see how the Bills come out and play in this one. Moving into our final Drew Locks of the season, Week 18 edition. And if you're new to the segment, welcome in. Each week, Jell and I pick a quarterback, wide receiver, running back, and tight end. Once you use a player, you cannot use them again. And once you cannot pick the same player as your opponent for the week, whatever fantasy points those guys score, you will go ahead and add that into your season-long running total. And Week 18 edition, even number week, I have the first pick of the draft.
Why don't we remind everybody where these standings are at going into the final week, or at least the total points?
Yeah, the total points, we're still kind of figuring out.
Well, okay, that's a good point. So Josh had Joe Burrow and T. Higgins in Week 17. Obviously, that game was never completed. So we're trying to figure out I guess we're going to try to figure out how we're going to work our way around that. I say we just bring in the Week 18 points into that and apply that to Week 17, if you're good with that.
That works for me.
All right. Well, without those points being accounted for, I had a nice week with Jared Goff, CeeDee Lamb, Travis Etienne, and Evan Ingram. Josh had a couple duds with Dalvin Cook and Dallas Goedert at his running back and tight end position. So we'll bounce. We'll add up those Joe Burrow, T. Higgins points when we get there. But right now, I've got a pretty commanding lead. So
yes, you do.
But Josh, this is an even week, so kick it off with your first pick.
Yeah, and it's hard Week 18 because you don't know how much some people are going to play. So I have to preface it that way. And with that in mind, I got to go Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, is going to be fighting for a playoff spot. Detroit is one of the worst pass defenses in the league, and Rodgers is going to be trying to make the playoffs. So, he's going to be doing what he can out there. So I'm going to lock in Aaron Rodgers with my first pick here.
I'm good with that. Yeah, I think that's just a fine pick, sir. With that same exact thing in mind, Steelers are obviously fighting for a playoff spot. Najee Harris it seems like he's finally kind of gotten it going. And so I'll lock him in right now as my RB1, Mr. Najee Harris.
All right. Last week against Detroit, Cole Kmet had a fantastic game. So I'm going to double up with Aaron Rodgers and take Bobby Funyuns here. So I think Bobby Funyuns might find the end zone in this one, scraping at the bottom of the barrel for the tight end position.
I thought you were going to go Mercedes Lewis there.
Ooh, no.
That would not be bueno.
No.
All right, I will let me jump over to the tight end position. Last week, Darren Waller went for 72 and a tutty. He's finally healthy. If you know anything about, Josh McDaniels, Jarrett Stidham, they go back to New England, where New England loves their tight ends. Last week, Las Vegas finally utilized their tight end, their star tight end, Darren Waller. And so I'm going to lock him in at my tight end spot.
The tight end he used in week 2?
What? Did I really?
Yes,
Damn
sir.
It. Shit, I did. Okay. Well, let me find a new tight end. But in the meantime, I guess I'll go. Damn it. All right. In the meantime, I'll go with God. This is going to be a Green Bay heavy week. Where I'm going to go Christian Watson as my wide receiver for the week. I got to find a new tight end.
Nice. Yeah, I like Christian Watson. I used him a couple weeks back. Otherwise, I think that would have been my stack with Aaron Rodgers. Allen Lazard just hasn't really been doing a whole lot lately. So Christian Watson's a nice pick there. I'm going to go with the running back position. I'm going to take a little bit of a gamble in this one. Vikings don't have a ton to play for. They pretty much are going to be in that 3 spot. I don't see San Francisco losing at all. So I don't see Dalvin Cook playing a huge amount in this one. And I'm going to go with Alexander Madison. I think he's going to get some garbage time play and end up having a decent game against the Bears defense that does not have much to play for right now. So I'm going to roll with Madison.
Back-to-back Vikings at your running back spot.
Yep. Doubling up.
All right. Well, let me double check, but I'm pretty sure. Shit. Where is he? Seattle tight end.
Oh, Noah Fant.
Let me double check.
You're good.
All right. Noah Fant it is, baby.
I like it.
No offense, but I had to get him in.
All right. And with my last pick, man, I'm between 2 guys here. I'm going to go with the wide receiver that they paid the most money to this offseason. I'm going to roll Christian Kirk in this one. I think Trevor Lawrence has a big game this week against Tennessee. Obviously, huge playoff implications, win and get in, lose and go home. And I think Christian Kirk's going to step up in this one and help me out with my fantasy scores.
All right, Josh, little trivia question for you. And I think you can get this one right.
All right.
Who is this segment named after?
Drew Lock.
Drew Lock, baby, QB1. Gotta get him in there. Drew Lock, QB1.
What?
Let's go.
Are you hoping Gino gets hurt?
I had just a tribute pick, baby. A tribute to Drew Lock, week 18, Mr. Irrelevant, final pick. Final pick of the regular season, Mr. Irrelevant, which is where he belongs. Drew Lock, baby. My MVP pick his sophomore season of the NFL.
Love it.
which has not lived up to expectation.
So to recap, Gel is locking in Drew Lock, Christian Watson, Najee Harris, Noah Fant. I'm rolling Aaron Rodgers, Christian Kirk, Alexander Madison, and Bobby Funyuns. Moving into our last segment, it is the return of the PGA Tour season. They've had a little bit of wraparound this year so far, but kicking it off in style, Sentry Tournament of Champions, smaller field to kick off the 2023 calendar year. Only winners from last season on the PGA Tour are allowed to play in this one. So quite the star-studded field taking place at the Plantation Course in Kapalua, Maui. Par 73 course, 7,596 yards. So a little bit lengthy, but such a fun course. And I don't know about you, Gel, this time of year, you're in warmer weather than I am, but nice cold winter day. Nothing better than turning on a tournament in Hawaii, seeing the just blue ocean, just gorgeous landscape of Hawaii. So this is one that always gets me really excited for the golf season, not only the PGA, but warmer weather here in Wisconsin, so I can get out and swing some stick too.
Yeah. Speaking of warmer weather down here, I went to the driving range last weekend, and it felt so good to just hit some balls. I don't know. It just felt just after the holidays and everything, after Thanksgiving and that stretch, and then Christmas and that stretch, and last weekend went out, just grab myself a large bucket, hit some balls, and not saying hit them well, but it was good to kind of get loose again and hopefully prep myself a little bit for this upcoming season. But yeah, I mean, to second what you're saying is like, this is the unofficial kickoff for the PGA Tour for this season. And God, what a way to make everybody in the States jealous by playing this tournament in Hawaii. So it's like I said, they officially kick off this FedEx season back in 2022, but this is kind of when the PGA really starts to
unofficial
yeah,
start
the unofficial official start.
Yes. Some notables in this one, like I said, it's only winners from last year, but we got Tony Finau, Matthew Fitzpatrick, Sahith Theegala, Victor Hovland, Hideki Matsuyama, John Rahm, Xander Schauffele, Scotty Scheffler, Jordan Spieth, Justin Thomas, Will Zalatoris making his return after his back injury from last season, Patrick Cantlay, Colin Morikawa. Why don't you run through some of the guys, Gel? I know that we will not see it all this year on the PGA Tour.
Yeah, and these are all guys that we saw in this tournament last year that are not going to be appearing as they are now Live Golf members. And it's a pretty stacked group. Cameron Smith, who finished out the year as the player of the year last season, he's out. He's in the Live tournament, or he's in the Live group, or Live association. I don't, whatever they call it. Mark Leishman, his Aussie. Taylor Gooch, Patrick Reed, my pick. That was my pick for this in 2022, Patrick Reed. Bryson DeChambeau, Brooks Koepka, Phil Mickelson. By the way, need to give a little plug. Started this book yesterday. Phil, by a
rip-roaring biography.
The rip-roaring and unauthorized biography of Phil Mickelson. I started it last night, 55 pages deep, and I feel like I'm about to get into the meat of it, because the final sentence of the chapter that I left it off in was, 4 days after the World Series of Golf, Tiger Woods made his pro debut. So now I'm about to get into the down and dirty of basically the Phil and Phil Tiger rivalry. So I'm extremely excited for that. A couple others that aren't going to be joining us at this tournament. Abraham Answer, your boy Coat Rack and Mr. Wolf. So Matthew Wolf. So just a lot of names there that they were all playing in this tournament last year and aren't going to be there. It sucks. We're missing a lot of names, man. And it just dilutes the game of golf a little bit. And I guess that's what the intention of Live was. At least that's kind of what it felt like at the beginning, was to kind of make PGA feel a little bit less powerful and a little bit less dominant in the game of golf. And they kind of succeeded, and it sucks. It sucks as a viewer. It sucks as a fan. And to be missing out on a lot of these top names, just as a lot of them at this point, outside of Cam Smith, outside of Brooks, outside of Bryson, a lot of these names are a little bit middle of the road guys, but it makes that middle of the road much more competitive, much more entertaining. So just as a fan, it's disappointing. I'm carrying over that same thought, I guess, that I had at the end of last season, where it's just disappointing. But
yeah,
let's just get into this tournament and the players that are playing in it, which is still, like all the guys that you just mentioned, your top 10 in terms of betting odds: John Rahm, Scotty Scheffler, Patrick Cantlay, Justin Thomas, Xander Schauffele, Tony Finau, Cameron Young, Sungjae Im, Victor Hovland, Colin Morikawa.
I like it. All right, it is time for our picks. We're starting this over again, fresh slate after the drubbing that I got last year. So each week, Jell and I pick a golfer. Can't pick the same golfer as your opponent for that week. Similar to our Drew locks. Once you use a golfer, you cannot use them again. Whatever they shoot relative to par, doesn't matter if they miss the cut, make the cut, whatever their final score is at the end of their tenure in that tournament, that's what you get. Keep a running total throughout the season to see where we end up. Jell, I do have our official coin of our picks here. It is a nice
what is it? The DAS logo on one side and then our faces on the other.
I wish. It is 1999 Connecticut State Quarter, and it has the Connecticut tree of some sort. The Charter Oak on one side. Got the Charter Oak, and you've got good old head on the head side. So what would you like, sir?
First off, that has to be the most distributed coin of all of the states, of all the state quarters. I feel like that's the most common one out there.
I do see it all the time. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Connecticut, but you guys have done a great job with ESPN and quarters. I'll take the tree though.
All right.
I'll go with the Charter tree.
Here we go. It is the Charter tree. You get first pick.
Yeehaw! I'm a little scared to take this big of a name right off the bat, but I'm going Colin Morikawa. He finished in 6th place at the Hero World Challenge. Kind of looks like he's got the tan skin, like he's almost, Hawaiian in a way. So I mean, again, top 10 finish, top 6 finish in the last big time tournament back in December. So Colin Morikawa is my dog.
Well, first tournament of the year and first steal. So that was my pick.
Yeah, let's go, baby.
Hot start. Speaking of hot start, I'm going to pivot to the golfer that I used to get a hot start last year, and that is Mr. Sungjae Im. I picked him last year and he had a nice tournament. I believe he was T2 or at least top 5 last year. So tougher conditions this week. That's what I was hoping to roll with Morikawa with his iron game. Going to be a little breezy throughout the weekend, but I think Sungjae Im should come to play. He likes this course. He's played well at this course, so should get a solid score from Sungjae Im in this one.
Well, and what we have to love about this course is that we're going to see points or just negative strokes for days.
Yes.
Last year, Cameron Smith won it at a 34 under. So we're going to see birdies for days. We're going to see just And maybe the wind conditions, the weather won't play as hardcore in our favor as viewers this upcoming weekend, but 34 under, no matter how goddamn windy it is, we're looking at 25 plus, if not approaching 30, if not beyond. So this will be a really entertaining for us to start off the unofficial start of the PGA Tour and the official Dead Arm Sports Pick'em.
Love it. We can be found at Dead Arm Sports, Twitter, Instagram.
That's
check us
so
out on
funny.
Facebook at
Week
Dead Arm
one.
Sports.
Colin,
You
baby,
can find
let's
us
go.
on YouTube, Dead Arm Sports. We monitor that chat. Make sure you subscribe. Click the bell there. Joe can be found at
Ding.
DasGel. I can be found at DasJPEG. Give us a follow. Subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your favorite listening platform. Send us a screenshot of your review. Get you some swag. What are those platforms, Joe?
Find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Pods. Make sure to subscribe, rate, and review to whatever your chosen listening platform is. Take a screenshot of that written review, send it to us on our Twitter or Instagram pages at Dead Arm Sports, or hit us up on the DMs on Facebook. You can find our page just by searching Dead Arm Sports. Also on YouTube, as mentioned, search Dead Arm Sports, find us there, subscribe there, and make sure to hit that bell for YouTube. Make sure you get any notifications whenever we go live, whenever we put out any brand spanking new content.
Hope everyone has a great weekend out there. Well, looking forward to the national championship game on Monday. We'll be back next week to recap that, along with all of the NFL games, playoff implications. If you're one of the few folks out there that play fantasy football, week 18, this is your championship week. Shame on you. Get that switched to week 17 for next year. Otherwise, hope, again, everyone enjoys the sports-filled weekend. And Joe, close her out.
All right. For any of you baseball fans, obviously, we're in the hot stove month, but just want to give you a little food for thought here. 9-inning game, 4 at-bats per player, but you can bat whenever in the game you want. You got 4 at-bats. The manager gets to choose whenever you bat the entire game. You got a long weekend to think about it. Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. Think about it. Find us on Twitter or Instagram. Give us your thoughts. Adios.